I got involved in working on engaging men in large part because I always felt like I didn't belong with men, that I always felt like I was different, I was other. I had my manhood challenged very easily and frankly didn't feel like I held on to it very strongly. And so that's what brought me into this work of engaging men and really talking about helping men to create healthy environments. Because I feel like in so many ways, people who are raised male in this culture are agents of destruction of our communities instead of agents of change and hope. So wanting to try to turn that conversation around. And while I was doing that, I also discovered poker. Those two things feel about as far apart from each other, I think, as they can, because poker is in so many ways really the stereotype of manhood. And I felt at home at the poker table for some reason. It was very strange. Maybe because I was mostly playing with friends, that certainly helps. But then one day I went to Vegas. I was going to play poker for real for the second time ever. And I showed up, and because, as I said, I had been doing all of this work in sexual violence prevention, my whole wardrobe was basically Take Back the Night t-shirts. So when I went to the poker table, I was wearing a shirt that said, just in big block letters, "Stop Violence Against Women." And I had no idea what shirt I was wearing, right? It was just my Tuesday shirt. And after we'd been there for probably 3 hours, someone pointed out my shirt and said, "So tell me about what you're wearing." I said, "Well, this is what I do, and I try to engage men in ending gendered violence, and trying not to get too heavy at the poker table." And so the guy says, "Well, that's really interesting because my wife was married to someone else before me, and that person abused her, and we've been married for 25 years, and it still affects my relationship. She still gets scared sometimes because of what this other guy did to her." And the guy next to him says, "Well, that's really interesting because what I'm going through right now is that my daughter is 20 years old, and she's just this week going back to college after leaving during her first semester because she was sexually assaulted." And the guy next to him told a story about, I think it was his mother, I honestly don't remember, having been abused. And literally everyone at the table shared a story about an experience they had of someone they cared about being sexually assaulted or surviving domestic violence. And we got to one person who just started openly sobbing at the table. And in hypermasculine spaces, someone sobbing is generally not welcome, right? But also at the poker table, you make money based on how quickly you get hands done, right? That's how the house makes money. It's how players make money. Dealers make money through tips. And the game just stopped. And we just sat there. I wasn't sitting near the person who was sobbing, but the person next to him put his hand on his shoulder. And people just kind of sat there and let him regather himself. It felt like hours. It was probably 45 seconds. And then we just went on with the game. And I realized in that moment that something had happened because I was in this space that felt safe, that felt comfortable, that felt familiar for people. People felt an opportunity and a freedom to be vulnerable in a way that they normally wouldn't be, and normally aren't allowed to be as people raised male in this country. And so I thought, wow, I think I might be onto something here. And so I started, when I played poker, wearing those shirts intentionally and starting conversations and making sure to say things. And I've had many different experiences at the poker table like the one I described, although not quite as dramatic. I think that's the most dramatic thing. And in many ways, I think it might be the most powerful experience I've had in my decades now of doing violence prevention, is having conversations at the poker table and encouraging other people to have those conversations. So this is not structured in the way that curriculum is, right? It's not anything like that. I've always felt like it was kind of just random. And, no way to know if I'm actually making a difference. I'm an evaluator now, and I've always thought, this evaluation thing doesn't really work in this setting. But now, more recently, in the last year or so, I've discovered what's called principles-focused evaluation. It was put together by someone named Michael Quinn Patton. And he's totally reframed the conversation so that rather than looking at what we expect the outcomes to be and seeing how successfully we get there, he said, let's really focus on making sure that we're doing what we think works. And then just looking for what the outcomes might be. So we don't have to predict them, right? What we really need to do is think up front about what we're bringing into the conversation. And I as an evaluator, I'm really excited by this framework. And I have just begun thinking about what are the principles that I'm bringing to the table. I mentioned a few of them already in here. One of them is create a context in which people feel safe to be vulnerable. Another one would be, consistently modeling respect and empathy. If I start being an ass at the table, then I'm reducing my capacity to make that kind of impact. I've been talking about this idea of poker as prevention for more than 10 years now. Modeling awkward or vulnerability or fun or silly or playful really makes a difference. And I think that people desperately want play in our lives and are just looking for permission.